Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where we dive into the creepy and unsettling. Today, we're diving into 4 true college horror stories that'll make you rethink dorm life, late-night study sessions, and those shadowy campus corners. These are real accounts from students who face things they'll carry forever, things that make you question what's really out there. So, grab a snack, dim the lights, and let's jump right in. First up, we've got Emily, a freshman at a small liberal arts college in Ohio back in 2018. Emily was over the moon to move into her dorm, a gorgeous old building from the 1800s, with ivy crawling up the brick walls, tall arched windows, and wooden floors that groaned underfoot. It had character, history, the kind of place that felt alive with stories. She was on the 3rd floor, rooming with Sarah, a laid-back art major who became her instant best friend. The first few weeks were pure college bliss, midnight ramen runs, decorating their room with string lights, and dodging boring lectures. But around mid-October, when the air got crisp and the campus quieted down, things took a turn. One night, Emily woke up around 3 a.m., her room pitch black except for the faint glow of her laptop. She heard whispering, soft, rhythmic, like someone murmuring just outside her door. It wasn't loud, but it was distinct, like a conversation she couldn't quite catch. She figured it was other students in the hall, maybe coming back from a party or cramming for a test. She pulled her blanket up and tried to sleep, but the sound stuck in her head. The next night, it happened again, same time, 3 a.m., but clearer. She could almost make out words, phrases like, "not here," or "no rest," repeated in a low, urgent tone. Sarah was snoring softly, her side of the room cluttered with sketchbooks, so Emily knew it wasn't her. She got up, heart thumping, and cracked the door to check the hallway. Nothing. Just the flicker of old fluorescent lights and that faint dorm smell of laundry and burnt popcorn. She crawled back into bed, telling herself it was her imagination, maybe stress from midterms. But it kept happening, night after night, always at 3 a.m., always that same eerie murmur. One weekend, Sarah went home, leaving Emily alone. She stayed up, determined to figure it out. Right on cue, the whispering started, but this time it felt closer, like it was seeping through the walls themselves. She pressed her ear to the plaster, holding her breath. The words were sharper, "not here, not here," and then a faint scrape, like nails dragging across wood. She yanked her ear away, her skin prickling. She checked every inch of the room, under the beds, behind the curtains, even the heating vent. Nothing. The next day, she hit the campus library, digging through old records. She found something chilling. Her dorm had been a makeshift hospital during the 1918 flu pandemic. The 3rd floor was a quarantine ward, packed with beds for the sickest patients. Dozens died there, some alone, some delirious with fever. Locals swore the building never felt right after, with stories of voices and footsteps going back decades. Emily wasn't one for ghosts, but the facts lined up too well. Things got worse. One night, she woke to her desk chair spinning slowly, creaking as it turned, like someone had brushed past it. Sarah swore she hadn't touched it. She'd been asleep. Another time, Emily came back from class to find her textbooks stacked neatly on the floor, though she'd left them in a messy pile on her desk. She started sleeping with a lamp on, but the whispering didn't care. It came every night, sometimes louder, sometimes so soft it was almost worse. By December, Emily was a mess, jumping at shadows, failing quizzes because she couldn't focus. She told Sarah everything, and they both noticed small things, cold spots in the room, drawers opening on their own. Sarah admitted she'd heard the whispers too, but didn't want to freak Emily out. They requested a room change, but the dorm was full, so Emily stuck it out until winter break. She moved out for good in January, crashing with a friend off campus. Years later, she still checks her room at night, half expecting to hear that chant again. She never went back to that dorm, and when she drives by, she swears the 3rd floor windows look darker than the rest. Our second story comes from Jake, a junior at a big state university in Texas in 2021. Jake and his buddies, Matt and Tyler, wanted freedom, so they rented a cheap apartment off campus. The place was a dive, cracked walls, water stains like Rorschach tests, and a weird musty smell no amount of air freshener could kill. But it was theirs, and at $400 a month split 3 ways, they weren't complaining. They'd throw parties, blast music, and stumble to class hungover, living the college dream. One evening, Jake was alone, hammering out a paper on his laptop, when he heard footsteps above him. Heavy ones, like someone in work boots pacing back and forth. The steps were slow, deliberate, maybe 10 feet from one side to the other. The thing was, their apartment was on the top floor. Above them was just the roof, no attic, no maintenance crawl space. Jake froze, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. He thought maybe it was a neighbor, but the sound was too clear, too close, like it was right on top of him. He turned off his music and listened. The steps stopped, then started again, heavier, almost stomping. He grabbed his phone, ready to call Matt, but felt silly. What was he gonna say? I hear feet? He chalked it up to the building being old, maybe pipes or wind playing tricks. A week later, it happened again, but Matt was home, sprawled on the couch with a beer. They both heard it, thud, 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 pacing above the living room. Matt's eyes went wide and he grabbed a broom, banging the handle on the ceiling. Hey, cut it out, he yelled. The steps didn't even pause, just kept going, slow and steady. Jake and Matt looked at each other, half laughing, half freaked. They went outside, climbed the fire escape to check the roof. Nothing, no footprints, no debris, just gravel and a locked hatch. The fire escape itself was rusted, bolts loose, no way anyone was climbing it. Tyler got home later, and when they told him, he got excited. He was big into paranormal podcasts, always talking about EVPs and shadow figures. He suggested they record it next time, see if they could catch something. A few nights later, they set up Tyler's phone on the coffee table, mic on, and waited. Around 11 p.m. it started. Loud, unmistakable footsteps, pacing for maybe 15 minutes. None of them spoke, just sat there, goosebumps rising. The steps stopped abruptly, and they exhaled, thinking it was over. The next morning, they huddled around the phone to listen. The footsteps were there, clear as day, heavy and uneven, like someone dragging one foot. But there was more. A voice, low and rough, saying, "Get out. Now." It wasn't any of them. They'd been silent, barely breathing. Jake's hands shook as he paused the recording. They played it again, and the voice felt louder, angrier. Tyler, usually all bravado, looked pale. They went to the landlord, a grumpy guy who smoked cheap cigars. He laughed off their questions, said there was no apartment above them, just the roof, sealed tight for years. Jake wasn't satisfied. He searched online, found old tenant reviews mentioning weird noises and bad vibes in their unit. A local news archive mentioned a fire in the building in 1983. A guy died, some drifter who'd been squatting after getting evicted. He'd been trouble, starting fights, threatening neighbors. The fire started in his room, cause unknown, and they found him curled up in a corner like he'd been hiding. Jake, Matt, and Tyler didn't wait for answers. They broke their lease, paid a hefty fee, and moved to a tiny house across town, all 3 crammed into 2 bedrooms. They left furniture behind, anything to get out faster. Jake still keeps that recording, but he doesn't play it. Says it feels like inviting something back. Our third story is from Priya, a grad student at a university in California in 2019. Priya was a night owl, always in the campus library during finals season. The place was huge, a maze of bookshelves and study nooks, open 24/7 for desperate students. It had a gothic vibe, stone walls, stained glass, and lights that never seemed bright enough. Priya loved it, especially after midnight when it was just her, a few stragglers, and the hum of vending machines. One night, around 1 a.m., she was deep in the stacks, hunting for a book on medieval poetry for her thesis. The aisles were tight, lined with dusty volumes, and the air smelled like old paper and wax. She noticed a guy at the end of the aisle, tall, in a dark hoodie, hood up, just standing there. He was facing her, but his head was tilted, like he was studying something on the shelf. Still, she felt his eyes on her, heavy and unblinking. She figured he was some undergrad, maybe stoned or lost, so she grabbed her book and moved to another section. The library was quiet, just the faint tap of her sneakers and the buzz of a dying bulb. A few minutes later, she felt a cold breeze, sharp and sudden, like someone had opened a freezer. The library was sealed, no windows, no drafts, but the chill settled into her bones. She glanced up, and there he was again, the hoodie guy, closer now, maybe 10 feet away. His face was visible under the hood, and it wasn't right, pale, almost gray, with eyes too dark, like they swallowed the light. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. Priya's throat tightened. She backed away, clutching her book, and hurried to the main reading room where a handful of students were hunched over laptops. She kept looking behind her, and he was there, following. Not running, not even walking fast, just gliding along, always the same distance. Her heart was hammering, but she didn't want to scream and look crazy. She found the security guard, a bored older guy named Ed, and told him someone was creeping her out. Ed sighed, like he'd heard it before, and walked her back to the stacks. The guy was gone, no trace, not even a scuff on the floor. Ed said it was probably a tired student pulling a prank, but Priya knew better. Those eyes weren't human. She started asking around, low-key, not wanting to sound paranoid. A senior in her program who'd worked at the library told her about the Watcher. Back in the 70s, a student had died in the stacks, heart attack during finals, found slumped against a shelf days later. People said he never left, that he'd watch late-night studiers, standing at the edges, silent and still. Priya laughed it off at first, but she couldn't shake the image of that face. She stopped going to the library at night, sticking to coffee shops or her apartment. Even in daylight, the library felt wrong. Too quiet, too heavy. She'd catch herself scanning aisles, expecting him. Once she swore she saw a shadow slip behind a shelf, too tall to be real. When she finished her degree, she donated her books to a community center, not the library. She didn't want any part of her staying there. Our final story is from Liam, a sophomore at a college in New York in 2022. Liam was in a film club, a tight-knit group that screened movies in an old lecture hall on campus. The hall was creepy as hell, built in the 1870s, with vaulted ceilings, dusty chandeliers that swayed in drafts, and rows of wooden seats that creaked like they were alive. The projector was ancient, flickering no matter how many times they replaced the bulb, and the room echoed in a way that made whispers sound like shouts. The club loved it, especially for horror nights. It was their spot, their ritual. One Tuesday, they were watching a slasher flick from the 80s, just 6 of them in this massive space. Liam, his buddy Alex, club president Jen, and 3 others. The movie was cheesy, all fake blood and bad acting, and they were cracking jokes. About an hour in, the projector cut out, screen going black, room plunging into darkness. They groaned, assuming it was the usual glitch. Jen fumbled with the controls while Alex yelled about budget cuts. Then a loud bang echoed from the back of the hall, sharp and heavy, like a chair had been thrown against the wall. The group went quiet, all eyes straining into the dark. Liam and Alex grabbed their phones, using the flashlights to check. They expected a tipped chair, maybe a prank from another club. But the back row was perfect. Chairs upright, no mess, no nothing. They laughed it off, nerves jangling, and Jen got the projector running. The movie played for maybe 10 minutes before it died again, this time with a low buzz like the power was choking. As they sat there cursing, they heard it, whispering. Not one voice, but a dozen, soft and overlapping, like a crowd muttering just out of earshot. It filled the room, coming from nowhere and everywhere. Liam's skin crawled. He couldn't make out words, just a tone, urgent, angry, restless. They checked the speakers, off. The movie was paused. Jen, who'd booked the hall for years, looked spooked, her usual confidence gone. She said she'd heard creaks before, maybe footsteps, but nothing like this. They decided to bail, packing up in record time, joking to hide how rattled they were. Liam realized he'd left his jacket on his seat. He told the others to go ahead. He'd catch up. Big mistake. He went back alone, phone light cutting through the gloom. The hall felt different, colder, like the heat had been sucked out. He grabbed his jacket, and as he turned, his light caught something in the far corner. A shadow, taller than a person, shapeless but solid, like ink pooling in the air. It didn't move, but Liam felt it watching, heavy and wrong. He bolted, legs shaking, and didn't stop until he was outside with the others. He told them what he saw, expecting them to laugh. Instead, Jen went quiet. After a minute, she admitted the hall had a reputation. It was built over a cemetery the college had relocated in the 1860s. Decades later, when they added a basement, workers found bones. Human, scattered, some still in scraps of cloth. The school buried the story, but rumors stuck. Students reported whispers, shadows, bangs in empty rooms. Faculty avoided teaching there at night. Liam quit the film club the next week. He still had classes in the hall sometimes, but he'd always take the aisle seat closest to the door, and he'd check the corners every few minutes, waiting for that shadow to reappear. That's it. 4 real stories from real students, each one a glimpse into the weird, creepy side of college life. Emily's whispers, Jake's footsteps, Priya's watcher, Liam's shadow. They didn't ask for this, but they got it anyway. Campuses are supposed to be about growth and good times, but sometimes they're stages for something darker. If you've got your own college horror story, drop it in the comments. I'm all ears. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one.